What up, though? Get your nappy head over here. How many times do people who look like you ride you because your hair too kinky, dry, nappy? How many times do they offer you a solution? How many times do a mother put a relaxer in her daughter's or son's hair because their natural hair is too unmanageable? I just can't do nothing with your hair. Sitting in the kitchen, listening to WGCI and the iron straightening comb heating up like a branding iron or a blacksmith sword in the Gladiator movie. Then your mother removes the iron straightening comb from the blue fire. It gets closer to your head. As it touches the hairs on the back of your neck, you hear the baby hairs sizzle and burn off. You smell the scorched hair and skin. Be still. I ain't touched you yet. But Ma, when she's done, you have straight, more manageable hair, or at least as straight as the scalding iron comb can get it. Your hair's still thick though. You feel more confident, relieved that you survived. You fit in, praised by your peers. Your hair will never be the same, and it'll take a while for those burns on your neck and scalp to heal. Nappy hair meaning and origin, slang by dictionary.com. Nappy hair. What does nappy hair mean? Nappy hair is historically used as a derogatory term to describe the hair of black people, especially women, many of whom have reappropriated the term. Where does nappy hair come from? Nappy hair is specifically used when speaking about the hair of black people. The term has historically been a racist term. The word nappy is evidenced since at least the 1880s. An adjective form of nap, a term for raised fibers on a fabric. Nappy then may have originated in pejorative reference to the frizzy texture of cotton picked and prepared by people who were enslaved. During the 20th century, many black Americans embraced African aesthetics, including the very natural hair many white people previously disparaged as nappy. By the 1990s, nappy hair was seeing increasing use in popular black media and reclamation, especially by black women. Aliana L. Gibson published a memoir, Nappy, Growing Up Black and Female in America in 1995, and Carolivia Heron published a children's book, Nappy Hair, in 1997. Coarse hair, care tips, causes, treatment, and more. What to know about coarse hair? Coarse hair is a hair type with hair strands that are thicker and larger in diameter than other hair types. Coarse hair may be a feature of hair that is straight, wavy, curly, or coiled. It tends to be stronger than other hair types, but it is also less pliable and more prone to dryness and split ends. Properly caring for coarse hair can yield thick, voluminous, healthy-looking hair. Dermatologists and hairstylists define coarse hair as strands with larger widths or diameters than average. It is generally the strongest but least pliable hair type. Coarse hair requires more oil than the scalp can produce. The thickness of each strand also means that it takes longer for the oil to absorb into the hair shaft. As a result, coarse hair is more prone to losing moisture faster, feeling slightly rough, dry, or split ends. Coarse hair requires extra moisture to ensure each individual hair strand gets proper hydration and conditioning. Frequent use of heated styling tools, styling products, and harsh chemicals like dyes and bleaches can strip the hair of its moisture. This can result in the hair becoming dry and brittle. A 2021 research review found that chemical hair straighteners can cause damage to hair shafts, hair loss, alterations in hair color and composition. Hair relaxers are also associated with side effects affecting the scalp, such as pain, inflammation, eczema, burns, peeling skin. Moreover, overusing heat styling tools like irons, blowers, and curlers can also remove the hair's moisture, making it dry, frizzy, and brittle. Dry hair causes, treatments, and diagnosis. Why do I have dry hair? What is dry hair? Dry hair develops when your hair doesn't get or retain enough moisture. This reduces its sheen and can make it appear frizzy and dull. Causes of dry hair. A variety of factors can lead to dry hair, including environmental conditions, hair care habits, and your physical health. Some of the environmental conditions that can cause dry hair include living in a dry, hot climate, frequently swimming in chlorinated or salty water. Hair care practices that often contribute to dry hair include washing your hair too often, using harsh shampoos, conditioners, or styling products, dyeing or chemically treating your hair, regularly blow drying your hair, using electric curling irons, straighteners, or curlers. This is from healthline.com. How many of y'all know who your two parents are? Your four grandparents, your eight great grandparents, your 16 second great grandparents, your 32 third great grandparents. Find out. I'll be willing to bet that some, if not all of them, came from Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, don't they? Straight up, go look, go ask, don't they? Get at me and let me know. This is the removal of American Indians map, 1830 through 1838. The greenish shaded portions are where I'm sure your ancestors come from. Look it up, go find out. The greenish area is said that this area was forest. You can see it. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. All this area of what we term North America was said to be forest, trees, the wilderness, your people under the canopy, in the woods, in the forest, children of the forest, humidity, not too cold, not too hot, bare feet in the soil, the perfect amount of sun to glaze the skin, the moisture, water vapor, oxygen in the air, the humidity, moisture, water vapor, oxygen in your hair. Your hair is light as a feather, still thick. West Virginia State Climate Summaries 2022. NOAA National Centers for Environmental Information State Climate Summaries 2022, West Virginia. West Virginia. The climate of West Virginia is characterized by moderately cold winters and warm, humid summers. What is the weather, climate, and geography like in Virginia? Virginia weather, climate, and geography. Weather and climate. Virginia's climate is humid, subtropical, enjoying pleasantly hot summers and relatively mild but crisp winters, with moderate rainfall throughout the year. North Carolina State Climate Summaries 2022. NOAA National Centers for Environmental Information State Climate Summaries 2022, North Carolina. North Carolina has a humid climate with very warm summers and moderately cold winters. Overview of South Carolina's climate and hazards, prepared by South Carolina State Climatology Office, Land, Water, and Conservation Division, South Carolina Department of National Resources. Climate controls. Most of the state falls within the humid subtropical Köppen climate classification, resulting in hot, humid summers with mild winters. Climate of Florida by Dr. Morton D. Winsberg of the Florida State University, prepared for the National Climatic Data Center. Most of the state lies within the extreme southern portion of the northern hemisphere's humid subtropical climate zone, noted for its long, hot, and humid summers and mild and wet winters. The southernmost portion of the state is generally designated as belonging to the tropical savanna region, a climate that it shares with most of the Caribbean islands. Georgia, Climatology, Climate Change Knowledge Portal. Georgia, Current Climate, Climatology. In the western part of Georgia, the climate is subtropical, while in the eastern part experiences a dry, moderate continental climate. Climate of Alabama. The Alabama climate is temperate, with an average annual temperature of about 64 degrees Fahrenheit, mellowed by altitude to some 60 degrees Fahrenheit in the northern counties and reaching 67 degrees Fahrenheit in the southern counties. Although summer heat is often alleviated somewhat by the winds blowing in from the Gulf of Mexico, occasionally the temperature may rise to 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. These favorable conditions have given the state a long growing season, ranging from about 200 days in the north to some 300 days in the south. Charles Good, Robert J. Norrell, the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica. Mississippi Climate, Department of Geosciences at Mississippi State University. Mississippi is located in the humid subtropical climate region, characterized by temperate winters, long hot summers, and rainfall that is fairly evenly distributed through the year. Louisiana weather and climate, current weather conditions, hurricanes to hit Louisiana, weather records, national weather maps, Louisiana weather and climate, geography of Louisiana and its impact on weather. Typical Louisiana weather patterns and climate. Louisiana has a humid subtropical climate with long, hot, humid summers and short, mild winters. Tennessee Climatology, ETSU, Tennessee Climatology, Tennessee Climate Office. Most of Tennessee is in the humid subtropical climate type, while higher elevations are in the oceanic highland climate type. Kentucky State Climate Summaries 2022, NOAA, National Centers for Environmental Information State Climate Summaries 2022, Kentucky. Kentucky's climate is characterized by moderately large variations in temperature and abundant precipitation. Summers vary from warm to hot and humid, while winters are cool with occasional episodes of very cold Arctic air. Etymology, Origin and Meaning of Subtropical by Etymonline. The online version of the definition and etymology of words. Subtropical, adjective. Sub, word forming element meaning under, beneath, behind, from under, resulting from further division from Latin preposition sub, under, below, beneath, at the foot of, also close to, up to, toward, of time, within, during, figuratively, subject to, in the power of. Tropical, adjective, 1520s, pertaining to the celestial tropics, from tropic, in reference to the torrid zones of the earth, from 1690s, meaning hot and lush, like the climate of the tropics, is first attested 1834. Etymology online, the definition and etymology of words, online version, tropical, adjective, 1520s, pertaining to the celestial tropics, in reference to the torrid zones of the earth, from 1690s, meaning hot and lush like the climate of the tropics, is first attested 1834. Merriam-Webster online version. Tropical adjective. Of, relating to, occurring in, or suitable for the use in the tropics, tropical forest. Of, being, or characteristic of a region or climate that is frost free, with temperatures high enough to support year round plant growth, given sufficient moisture. Tropical Florida. What causes humidity? Scientific American. Environment. What causes humidity? August 2005. Jeffrey Hovis, a science and operations officer with the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration's National Weather Service in Charleston, West Virginia. The air that we breathe is made up of numerous gases, including water vapor. The term humidity generally refers to the amount of this water vapor in the atmosphere. The vapor pressure of water thus measures the amount of water vapor in the air. Relative humidity, a term often used by the local TV and radio media, is a measure of the actual amount of moisture in the air compared to the total amount of moisture that the air can hold. Warm air can hold more water than cool air, but if the air, warm or cool, is holding half as much moisture as it can hold when saturated, the relative humidity is 50%. The flow in the Atlantic Ocean results in warm water flowing north from the equator along the eastern seaboard. The water in the Gulf of Mexico also becomes quite warm, especially in summer. Southerly winds often prevail along the eastern seaboard, and these winds act to bring the warm air from the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Ocean northward into the area. Because warm air can hold more moisture than cool air, it feels more humid, and the dew point temperatures are frequently higher along the eastern seaboard than they are along the west coast in the summer months. The Truth About Trees, the Permaculture Research Institute. The Truth About Trees, Julia Mitchell, December 2010. The photosynthetic process provides the trees with nutrients and humans with the primary element required to sustain life: oxygen. Trees moderate temperature due to two distinct processes: evaporation and condensation. Evaporation causes local heat loss during the day, which cools the air in hot weather. Condensation causes local heat gain, which warms the air at night. Additionally, leaves have twice the specific heat, the heat capacity per unit mass of a body, than soil, meaning plants can be up at 15 degrees warmer than their surrounding environment. In certain climates, trees even act as dehumidifiers by directly absorbing moisture in the air. If dry, hot air enters a forest, it is shaded, cooled, and humidified. If cold, humid air enters the forest, it is warmed, dehumidified, and slow released through the leaves of the trees. Furthermore, trees create precipitation through compression, condensation, evapotranspiration, and melting. Wind blowing at a forest edge will be compressed. This compression causes more water vapor, which in turn cools the ascending air. Forests create clouds. Clouds are made through evaporation of the leaves by day and water transpiration as part of their life process. Trees can return up to 75% of their water to air. It is highly likely that the deforestation of an area is directly related to downwind drought. It is important to note that the forest is continually recycling water to air and rain whilst producing 50% of its own rain. North American Forest in the Age of Man, American Forest, July 2012. North American Forest in the Age of Man by Whit Bronow. This is from AmericanForest.org. In mid-1800s, the Great Lakes, Appalachia, southeast and west were still relatively unscathed. Then perhaps the most sudden and drastic change to American forests ensued with the Industrial Revolution. Railroads and steam-generated power helped make lumber a large-scale industrial commodity. For the first time in history, large-scale deforestation took place for no local reason. Timber production soared from 1 billion board feet in 1840 to 46 billion board feet in 1904, enough to fill more than 10 million modern logging trucks. By 1880, lumber had overtaken agriculture as the most important driver of deforestation. By 1920, more than two-thirds of American forests had been leveled at least once, including the vast majority of eastern forests. The trees in mature forests are adapted to soil characteristics. Light intensities and moisture levels created by the forest species themselves. Remove these species and all those factors change. The Atlantic, August 1897 issue. The American Forest by John Muir. The forests of America must have been a great delight to God, for they were the best he ever planted. The whole continent was a garden, and from the beginning it seemed to be favored above all the other wild parks and gardens of the globe. These forests were composed of above 500 species of trees. To the southward stretched dark, level-topped cypresses in knobby, tangled swamps, grassy savannas in the midst of them like lakes of light, groves of gay sparkling spice trees, magnolias and palms, glossy, leveled and blooming and shining continually. To the northward, over Maine and the Ottawa, rose hosts of spiry, rosiny evergreens, white pine and spruce, hemlock and cedar, shoulder to shoulder, laden with purple cones, their myriad needles sparkling and shimmering, covering hills and swamps, rocky headlands and domes, ever bravely aspiring and seeking the sky, the ground in their shade now snow-clad and frozen, now mossy and flowery. Beaver meadows here and there, full of lilies and grass, lakes gleaming like eyes, and a silvery embroidery of rivers and creeks watering and brightening all the vast, glad wilderness. Thence westward were oak and elm, hickory and tupelo, gum and liriodendron, sassafras and ash, linden and laurel, spreading on ever wider in glorious exuberance over the great fertile basin of the Mississippi, over damp level bottoms, low dimpling hollows, and round dotting hills, embossoming sunny prairies and cheery park openings, half sunshine, half shade, while a dark wilderness of pines covered the region around the Great Lakes. Thence, still westward, swept the forest to the right and left around grassy plains and deserts 1,000 miles wide, irrepressible host of spruce and pine, aspen and willow, nut pine and juniper, cactus and yucca, caring nothing for drought, extending undaunted from mountain to mountain, over mesa and desert, to join the darkening multitudes of pines that covered the high rocky ranges and the glorious forests along the coast of the moist and balmy Pacific, where new species of pine, giant cedars and spruces, silver firs and sequoias, kings of their race, growing close together like grass in a meadow, poised their brave domes and spires in the sky 300 feet above the ferns and the lilies that enameled the ground, towering serene through the long centuries, preaching God's forestry fresh from heaven. Here the forests reached their highest development. Hence, they went wavering northward over icy Alaska, brave spruce and fir, poplar and birch, by the coast and the rivers, to within sight of the Arctic Ocean. American forest, the glory of the world, surveyed thus from the east to the west, from the north to the south, they are rich beyond thought, immortal, immeasurable, enough and to spare for every feeding, sheltering beast and bird, insect, and son of Adam, and nobody need have cared had there been no pines in Norway, no cedars and deodars on Lebanon and the Himalayas, no vine-clad selvas in the basin of the Amazon. The Indians with stone axes could do them no harm, than could gnawing beavers and browsing moose. Even the fires of the Indians and the fierce shattering lightning seemed to work together only for good, in clearing spots here and there for smooth garden prairies, and opening for sunflowers seeking the light. But when the steel axe of the white man rang out in the startled air, their doom was sealed. Accordingly, with no eye to the future, these pious destroyers waged interminable forest wars. Chips flew thick and fast. Trees in their beauty fell crashing by millions. After the Atlantic coast from Maine to Georgia had been mostly cleared and scorched into melancholy ruins, the overflowing multitude of bread and money seekers poured over the Alleghanies into the fertile Middle West, spreading ruthless devastation ever wider and farther over the rich valley of the Mississippi and the vast shadowy pine region about the Great Lakes. Thence, still westward, the invading horde of destroyers called settlers made its fiery way over the broad Rocky Mountains, failing and burning more fiercely than ever, until at last it had reached the wild side of the continent and entered the last of the great aboriginal forest on the shores of the Pacific. It has, therefore, as shown by Mr. Pinchot, refused to deliver its forests to more or less speedy destruction by permitting them to pass into private ownership. As is shown by Mr. E.A. Bowers, formerly Inspector of the Public Land Service, the foundation of our protective policy, which has never been protected, is an act passed March 1st, 1817, which authorized the Secretary of the Navy to reserve lands producing live oak and cedar for the sole purpose of supplying timber for the Navy of the United States. An extension of this law by the passage of the Act of March 2nd, 1831, provided that if any person should cut live oak or red cedar trees or other timber from the lands of the United States for any purpose than the construction of the Navy, such person should pay a fine not less than triple the value of the timber cut and be imprisoned for a period not exceeding 12 months. Upon this old law, as Mr. Bowers points out, having the construction of a wooden navy in view, the United States government has today chiefly to rely in protecting its timber throughout the arid regions of the West, where none of the naval timber, which the law had in mind, is to be found. As soon as a redwood is cut down or burned, it sends up a crowd of eager, hopeful shoots, which, if allowed to grow, would in a few decades attain a height of 100 feet, and the strongest of them would finally become giants as great as the original tree. In the clearings of one of the largest mills on the coast, we found 30 men at work last summer cutting off redwood shoots in the dark of the moon, claiming that all the stumps and roots cleared at this auspicious time would send up no more shoots. The redwood is the glory of the Coast Range. It extends along the western slope in a nearly continuous belt about 10 miles wide from beyond the Oregon boundary to the south of Santa Cruz, a distance of nearly 400 miles, and in massive sustained grandeur and closeness of growth surpasses all the other timber woods of the world. Trees from 10 to 15 feet in diameter and 300 feet high are not uncommon, and a few attain a height of 350 feet or even 400, with a diameter at the base of 15 to 20 feet or more. Thus, every mill is a center of destruction far more severe from waste and fire than from use. The same thing is true of the mines, which consume and destroy indirectly immense quantities of timber with their innumerable fires, accidental or set to make open ways, and often without regard to how far they run. The prospector deliberately sets fires to clear off the woods just where they are densest, to lay the rocks bare and make the discovery of mines easier. It is not generally known that, notwithstanding the immense quantities of timber cut every year for foreign and home markets and mines, from 5 to 10 times as much is destroyed as is used, chiefly by running forest fires that only the federal government can stop. The half dozen transcontinental railroad companies advertise the beauties of their lines in a gorgeous many-colored folders, each claiming it's as the scenic route, the route of superior desolation, the smoke, dust, and ashes route would be a more truthful description. Every train rolls on through dismal smoke and barbarous melancholy ruins, and the companies might well cry in their advertisements, "Come, travel our way. Ours is the blackest. It is the only genuine Erebus route. The sky is black and the ground is black, and on either side there is a continuous border of black stumps and logs, blasted trees appealing to heaven for help as if still half alive. And their mute eloquence is most interestingly touching. The blackness is perfect." John Muir was an author, environmental activist, and founder of the Sierra Club. He was known for his nature writing and as an advocate for preserving wilderness in the United States. This is timeline.com. Stephanie Buck. The first American settlers cut down millions of trees to deliberately engineer climate change. America's first colonists encountered dense, dark wilderness in the Northeast. Their winters were freezing and summers dripped with humidity. Rather than adapt, a collection of scientists, doctors, and writers campaigned to deforest the land. In their minds, cutting down thousands of acres at a time would improve the weather. Science writer John Evelyn wrote in 1664 that forest moisture was contributing to disease. One Dr. Alexander Hewitt maintained that no European without hazard can endure the fatigues of laboring in the open air. Mastering the American climate became not only a matter of survival, but a form of political propaganda. Unless the settlers could prove that the land and weather were manageable, they wouldn't be able to attract more colonists. And without more colonists, they could not completely conquer the land. They believe exposing more of the land to circulating air and sunlight would reduce the region's nonsensical humidity and actually lead to less frequent rainfall. Plus, beginning the task would surely attract more of their European brethren. This photograph, European settlers in North America were tasked with making a home of the wilderness. Library of Congress, 1870s print. The wilderness, the forest. Children of the forest. Yo people under the canopy. When the first colonists arrived, wrote John Adams, The whole continent was one dismal wilderness, the haunt of wolves and bears and more savage men. By the 18th century, American colonists had drained marshes, tilled soil, and chopped down millions of acres of virgin forest. Before the settlers arrived, the United States had about 1 billion acres of forest, which covered about half of the country, including Alaska. In the time since 1600, it would be reduced by about 286 million acres, converted to mostly agricultural use. People insisted the climate had improved. In 1769, Edward Antill wrote a letter to the American Philosophical Society. Whoever compares the present state of air with it formerly, before the country was opened, cleared, and drained, will find that we are every year fast advancing to that pure and perfect temperament of air, fit for making the best and richest wines of every kind. Admirable ends, but questionable means. In his notes on Virginia, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "A change in our climate is taking place very sensibly." In a 1763 letter, Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Cleared land absorbs more heat and melts snow quicker." He added one caveat, however: more study was necessary to confirm these findings. Clear cutting in Missouri, 1938, U.S. National Archives. Climate hadn't been improving, argued Massachusetts Dr. Job Wilson, who studied meteorological records spanning 16 years. Deforestation had made the country's heat and cold even more extreme. One William Dunbar wrote to the American Philosophical Society, "It is with us a general remark that of late years the summers have become hotter and the winters colder than formerly." Noah Webster of dictionary fame agreed that clearing trees could certainly exaggerate extremes. Modern scientists attribute forest cover as an important influence in climate, especially as it relates to light absorption and carbon dioxide. Forests offset harmful greenhouse gases that would otherwise enter the Earth's atmosphere. The world still deforests 15 billion trees every year. Since the beginning of human civilization, the global tree count has fallen by 46%. Nappy Head. It ain't no pink or gray people started this nappy hash with me. I heard it from people who look like me, who were around me from a very young age, and all the people who look like you rode you for having nappy hair, but never offered a solution or told you why. I'm finna get you a kitty perm. Philip Kingsley, Hair Guide. Annabelle Kingsley, January 31st, 2016. Hair relaxing, chemical straightening. Hair relaxing is a form of permanent chemical straightening. Chemical relaxers use extremely high heat and chemicals to break disulfide bonds. The chemicals most commonly used in relaxers include sodium hydroxide, ammonium thioglycolate, and sodium thioglycolate. Chemical relaxers are permanent and last until your hair grows out. The high heat and strong chemicals used in relaxers risk making your hair dry, brittle, and prone to breakage. If left on too long, chemical straighteners can cause mass hair breakage. Chemical processes can cause the bonds inside the hair to weaken and break. And when the internal structure of the hair is compromised, strands are more prone to snapping and splitting. The act of straightening your hair out during the processing can sometimes overstretch the hair shafts, leaving insufficient elasticity for your hair to withstand normal everyday styling procedures, such as brushing and blow drying. The chemicals used in relaxing treatments are very strong and are applied near to your scalp. If the treatment is performed incorrectly, there is a risk of chemical burns on your scalp, and this can result in infection, scarring, and permanent hair loss. CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide has no smell. It is made of solid white crystals that absorb water from the hair. Sodium hydroxide is caustic. Sodium hydroxide can harm workers who come in contact with it. The level of harm depends upon the amount, duration, and activity. It can burn the eyes, skin, and inner membranes and cause temporary hair loss. Manufacturers may use sodium hydroxide to produce soaps, rayon, paper products that explode, dyes, and petroleum products. Other tasks that may use sodium hydroxide include processing cotton fabric, metal cleaning and processing, oxide coating, electroplating, and electrolytic extraction. Electrolytic extraction. It is often present in commercial drain and oven cleaners. Some examples of workers who are at risk of exposure to sodium hydroxide include those who use bleach, oven cleaners, and drain cleaners, work in food processing plants, work in public water treatment plants, use sodium hydroxide for making paper, glass, detergent, soaps, and other products, mine alumina, and produce aluminum. Useful search terms for sodium hydroxide include lye, caustic soda, soda lye, and sodium hydrate. PubChem. Ammonium thioglycolate. Ammonium thioglycolate is a colorless to faint pink liquid with a repulsive skunk-like odor. Ammonium thioglycolate is an organic ammonium salt having thioglycolate as the counterion, also known as perm salt. It has use in perming hair. It has a role as a reducing agent and an allergen. It contains a thioglycolate. colorless to pale pink liquid, repulsive odor, strong skunk-like odor, hazardous substances databank, danger, may be corrosive to metals, toxic if swallowed, may cause an allergic skin reaction, harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. Exposure to this compound may cause sensitivity, dermatitis of scalp or hands with edema, erythema, subcutaneous lesions, burning of skin, papular rash and itching. It may also cause hypoglycemia. Other symptoms include central nervous system depression, convulsions, and dyspnea. Acute chronic hazards. This compound is a strong allergen. When heated to decomposition or in contact with acid or acid fumes, it emits highly toxic fumes of sulfides. National Toxicology Program, Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. Ammonium thioglycolate, used for alkaline hair permanence, is difficult to patch test because of its irritating effects. It is a known cause of irritant contact dermatitis in hairdressers and their clients. This is the toxicity summary. Y'all get the picture. Y'all ain't slow. PubChem, sodium thioglycolate. Thioglycolic acid, sodium salt, is a white powder with a slight odor, used in cold waving of hair and as a depilatory. Danger, toxic if swallowed, toxic in contact with skin, causes severe skin burns and eye damage, may cause an allergic skin reaction, toxic if inhaled, very toxic to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. Symptoms of exposure to this compound may include dermatitis, erythema, edema, subcutaneous hemorrhages, and caustic poisoning. This compound is a local irritant and may be absorbed through the skin. When heated to decomposition, it emits toxic fumes. Chemical hair relaxer. Topics by science.gov. Science.gov, your gateway to U.S. federal science. Sample records for chemical hair relaxer. Relaxers, damage hair, evidence from amino acid analysis, PubMed. Relaxers are used by more than 2/3 of African females to straighten hair with easy grooming and increased length, often cited as reasons. There was a decrease in cysteine, citrulline, and arginine. However, an increase in glutamine was found in all relaxed compared to natural hair. Cysteine levels were similar in natural, proximal, and distal hair. Relaxers are associated with reduced cysteine consistent with fragile damaged hair. A decrease in citrulline and glutamine has been associated with inflammation. Hair relaxer use and risk of uterine leiomyomata in African American women, PubMed. Hair relaxers are used by millions of black women, possibly exposing them to various chemicals through scalp lesions and burns. In the Black Women's Health Study, the authors assessed hair relaxer use in relation to uterine leiomyomata incidence. Measurement of endocrine disrupting and asthma associated chemicals in hair products used by black women, PubMed. Personal care products are a source of exposure to endocrine disrupting and asthma associated chemicals. Personal care products are a source of exposure to endocrine disrupting and asthma associated chemicals. This preliminary study investigates the endocrine disrupting and asthma associated chemical content of hair products used by U.S. black women. We used gas chromatography mass spectrometry to test 18 hair products in 6 categories used by black women: hot oil treatment, anti-frizz polish, leave-in conditioner, root stimulator, hair lotion, and relaxer. We tested for 66 chemicals belonging to 10 chemical classes: ultraviolet filters, cyclosilazans, glycol ethers, fragrances, alkylphenols, ethanolamines, antimicrobials, bisphenol A, phthalates, and parabens. The hair products tested contained 45 endocrine disrupting or asthma associated chemicals, including every targeted chemical class. Hair relaxers for children contained 5 chemicals regulated by California's Proposition 65 or prohibited by EU cosmetics regulation. Targeted chemicals were generally not listed on the product label. Hair products used by black women and children contained multiple chemicals associated with endocrine disruption and asthma. Influence of chemical straightening on the stability of drugs of abuse in hair, PubMed. Chemical straightening, also known as a relaxer, is ubiquitously used among African American women to obtain straighter hair compared with their natural tresses. This study focused on the stability of drugs of abuse in hair after a single application of the relaxer. Commercially available lye or no-lye chemical straightening products were applied in vitro to drug-fortified hair and hairs clipped from established drug users. Black women's hair, the main scalp dermatosis and aesthetic practices in women of African ethnicity. Afro-ethnic hair is different from Caucasian and Asian hair and has unique features. Ethnic hair is more prone to certain conditions or diseases. Such diseases are not only related to the fragile inner structure of the hair, but also to the cultural habits of hairstyles that often exert traction forces upon the pilosebaceous follicle. Women with African hair subject their hair to chemical treatments such as hair straightening and relaxing, and thus modify the structure of their hair shaft. making it more susceptible to damage. For this reason, hair complaints are common among black women and represent a diagnostic challenge to the dermatologist, requiring a thorough clinical examination of the hair and scalp and a detailed medical history of the patient. The purpose of this review is to warn of the potential side effects and sequelae related to hairstyles and hair treatments used by black women, and to highlight the major diseases that affect this ethnicity. My hair thick, moisturized with items such as walnut oil, the juice from fresh fruits, vegetable glycerin, and is as light as a feather. And I can get a fine tooth comb through my hair effortlessly. Dr. Edward Shook, Herbology. Glycerin. Glycerin is a triatomic alcohol. It is non toxic and is the greatest solvent known to us. Its varied and versatile action upon various cells and tissues of the human organism makes it, if not the greatest, at least one of the greatest curative principles in nature. Alone, glycerin is laxative, solvent, emollient. When diluted, it is nutrient, lubricant, anti-fermentative, parasiticide, vermicide. Externally, it is most valuable in skin diseases, eczema, herpes, lepra, pityriasis, psoriasis, lichen, prurigo. In lotion for encrusted lupus, chapped skin, excoriated surfaces, fissures of anus and nipple wounds, boils, carbuncles, abscesses, coryza, pharyngitis, otorrhea, deafness, alaise, itching, dryness of the mouth, etc. Internally, it is most valuable in phthisis, diabetes, typhoid fever, dysentery, hemorrhoids, leukorrhea, constipation, etc. It is a solvent of iodine, bromine, tannin, alkaloids, salicin, alkalis, etc. Prevents extracts from molding, keeps them soft, and does not evaporate. My hair thick, moisturized with items such as walnut oil, the juice from fresh fruits, vegetable glycerin, and is as light as a feather. And I can get a fine tooth comb through my hair effortlessly. Do the right thing.